The auditorium fell silent as Professor Vexler adjusted the holographic projector. His four eyes blinked in sequence, a Calrithian gesture of anticipation, as 300 students from across the galactic consortium settled into their seats. This was the moment he'd been preparing for all semester, the final lecture on extinct civilizations. Today, Vexler began, his translator chip rendering his clicks and whistles into universal standard, we discuss the most fascinating species to ever grace our galaxy. A civilization so brief, so violent, and yet so impossibly brilliant that their very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about sentient development. The hologram flickered to life, displaying a blue-green planet spinning lazily in space. Earth, he announced, home to humanity, extinct for approximately 2,000 cycles. In the back row, Orla's stomach dropped. Her hand froze halfway to her data pad. The human exchange student, one of only 12 known survivors of Earth's final days, felt every eye in the auditorium sliding toward her. She sank lower in her seat, her auburn hair falling forward to hide her face. Beside her, Jackson leaned over. "You okay?" he whispered, his brown eyes concerned. As the only other human in the xenobiology program, he'd become her closest friend over the past year. "Fine," Orla muttered, though her knuckles had gone white gripping the armrest. Professor Vexler continued, oblivious or uncaring. Humanity was classified as a Type 0.7 civilization when they made first contact with the consortium, primitive by our standards. They had barely achieved fusion power, had never left their own star system, and were still engaged in regular warfare amongst themselves. The hologram shifted, showing images of old Earth. Cities of glass and steel, vehicles crawling along gridded streets, primitive spacecraft hovering in orbit. And yet, Vexler's voice took on a note of wonder, when the Vorthaxi hive invaded their world, a Type 2 civilization with technology millennia beyond Earth's capabilities, humanity did the impossible. They won. A murmur rippled through the students. Several of the Calrithians chittered in disbelief. The professor gestured, and the hologram changed again. This time it showed battlefields, primitive human weapons facing off against biomechanical monstrosities. Orla's breath caught. She remembered these images from the memorial archives. Her parents had fought in those battles. Humanity had a saying, Vexler continued, necessity is the mother of invention. In 18 months, they went from chemical rockets to quantum drives. They reverse-engineered Vorthaxi weaponry and improved upon it. They created the first biological AI hybrid interface, allowing their pilots to merge consciousness with their fighter craft. Innovations that should have taken centuries, they achieved in less than 2 solar cycles. Jackson's hand found Orla's under the armrest, giving it a reassuring squeeze. She squeezed back, grateful. But humanity's greatest weapon, the professor said, wasn't their technology. It was their absolute, stubborn refusal to surrender. Vorthaxi drones are bred to feel no fear. Human soldiers felt fear every moment of every day and fought anyway. The Vorthaxi had never encountered anything like it. The hologram shifted through battle footage. Pilots flying suicide runs to protect colony ships, soldiers holding impossible positions, scientists working until they collapsed from exhaustion. Orla recognized the Battle of Mars, where her father had died. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in front of 300 aliens. When humanity finally drove the Vorthaxi from their system, Vexler continued, the consortium offered them full membership. We wanted to study them, learn from them. For 50 cycles, humanity thrived. They established colonies on 17 worlds. Their scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough. Their artists created works that still move us today. Their philosophers challenged our oldest assumptions about consciousness and morality. The professor paused, his membrane flickering, the Calrithian equivalent of a sigh. And then came the cascade. The hologram showed what everyone in the galaxy knew, the quantum experiment that had gone catastrophically wrong. Earth's sun destabilizing, the desperate evacuation, billions of humans fleeing in whatever ships they could find. And then, the supernova that consumed not just Earth but 3 of humanity's closest colonies. Of 17 billion humans, Vexter said softly, fewer than 100,000 survived, scattered across the galaxy, diluted into other populations. Within 3 generations, they were effectively extinct as a distinct species. The last pure human communities number in the thousands, clinging to their heritage on remote stations and frontier worlds. Orla felt tears tracking down her cheeks now. She didn't care anymore. The hologram shifted again, and Orla's heart stopped. It was her, or rather a much younger her, barely 18, wearing the blue and silver robes of her graduating class, standing in front of New Vancouver Station's commemorative wall. Her hair had been shorter then, and she'd been smiling despite everything, because she'd just earned the highest marks in xenobiology in the station's history. The photo had been taken for the local archive, she remembered, a small celebration of human achievement in the face of extinction. This, Professor Vexter said, is one of the last known photographs of a pure human in traditional academic regalia, taken approximately 10 cycles ago on New Vancouver Station, a reminder of what we lost when. Excuse me. Orla's voice cut through the lecture hall, steady despite her tears. She stood up, Jackson rising with her in solidarity. Why are you showing my graduation photo? The auditorium erupted. 300 students turned to stare. Professor Vexter's 4 eyes widened in what might have been shock or embarrassment. You're, the professor stammered, his translator struggling with his rapid-fire clicks. You're the girl from the photograph. Orla Chen, she said, lifting her chin. New Vancouver Station, class of 2643. That's me at 18, standing in front of the memorial wall that lists the names of every human who died in the Cascade, including my parents, my grandparents, and my little brother. The silence was absolute. I'm not extinct, Professor, Orla continued, her voice gaining strength. Neither is Jackson. Neither are the 12,000 of us scattered across your advanced civilization, trying to preserve what's left of our culture while people like you turn us into museum exhibits. She grabbed her data pad, Jackson doing the same. You want to know what humanity's greatest trait was? It wasn't stubbornness or innovation. It was hope. The belief that tomorrow could be better than today, no matter how bad today was. That's why my parents fought the Vorthaxi. That's why the evacuation fleets launched even when everyone knew most wouldn't make it. That's why I'm here, in your classroom, studying xenobiology so I can maybe, possibly, find a way to help rebuild what we lost. Orla started toward the exit, Jackson right behind her. The sea of alien students parted before them. At the door, she turned back. We're not a cautionary tale, Professor. We're not your tragic case study. We're still here. And as long as even one human draws breath, we're not extinct. We're just getting started. The door hissed shut behind them. In the hallway, Jackson let out a long breath. That was incredible. That was terrifying, Orla corrected, but she was smiling through her tears. I can't believe I just yelled at Professor Vexter in front of the entire advanced xenobiology class. He deserved it. Jackson pulled her into a hug. Using your photo without permission, for a lecture about extinction, that's beyond inappropriate. Orla laughed wetly into his shoulder. My academic career is probably over. Maybe, Jackson said, or maybe you just taught the most important lesson that classroom has ever heard. The next morning, Orla found a message waiting in her university account. It was from Professor Vexter. Miss Chen, I owe you an apology. In my enthusiasm to share humanity's remarkable history, I treated you and your people as artifacts rather than individuals. This was wrong. I have removed the photograph from my lecture materials and would like to meet with you to discuss how I might better represent human history and culture in my teaching, with your input and consent. More importantly, I would like to discuss a research opportunity. The Xenobiology Department has been allocated funding for a 5-cycle study on genetic preservation of endangered species. I can think of no better project lead than someone with both the expertise and the personal investment to see it through. If you're interested, my office hours are Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. With profound respect, Professor Vexther. Orla read the message 3 times, then forwarded it to Jackson with a single word: hope. His reply came instantly: see, still getting started. She smiled, opened a new message, and began typing her response to the professor. Humanity might be scattered, their numbers few, their homeworld gone, but they'd survived worse. They'd always survived worse. And they always would. Because that's what humans did.